and welcome to the Tavern Chat podcast. I'm your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, your main proprietor at the Tenkar's Tavern blog. And I don't know if you can tell, maybe you can hear the wind rustling the leaves, but I am in the Pocono Mountains of northeastern PA, away for the weekend. And I was thinking today, as I was holding Donka, the dachshund, on my lap, as I was trying to read the new Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, because I want to talk about that. And I got to thinking that the school year here in the Poconos, at least in the school district, is different. School ends earlier, people go back to school earlier, and I really got to thinking that in the early days of public education, at least in this country, the school year was often based upon farming. You know, when the local community needed the children to assist in either planting the field or harvesting the crops, you know, the school year accommodated that. And it also meant that many students didn't go to high school. They got the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and they would get that in their 8 years of elementary and, middle school, junior high school, whatever it's called in your community of education. But many would not go on to high school. So I started thinking about our fantasy worlds, and our fantasy worlds, in general, don't have public education. Now, invariably, your players see an urban environment, usually as the only kind of community that they interact with, whether it's a town or a city. It's a place that's established that has a tavern, like a general store, maybe a smith. Obviously, there's always at least one house of worship, usually, even if it's no longer being used. You always need something like that. But I really got to thinking about, in our fantasy world, we assume literacy from pretty much everybody, whether it's the farmer, the trapper, the hunter, the town guard, the watch. We assume that somehow they got themselves, maybe not even those 8. Maybe they get a 4th grade education. But somehow we are assuming that they're getting this education. And I don't remember in any setting, and I'm sure somebody will call in and correct me, and that's what you should do. But I can't recall any setting in any of my fantasy worlds, including public schooling, place for the children of peasants and farmers and laborers and caravan guards and prostitutes and the harlots and the bartender and the barmaid, where these children learn to read. Now, we can't all assume that they're being taught to read by their parents, because, listen, their parents are not trained teachers, not trained instructors. They're not a master at the craft of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And if you don't have a grasp of that, then your world is limited, even in a fantasy world. Take it a step further. If the non-player characters are illiterate, if they don't know their numbers, if they can't sign their name, then why do we assume classes like fighters can do the same? That they can read, right? Now it's like, if they have average intelligence, they know how to read and write, they can speak at least one additional language. I'm not stupid. And I am not a stupid individual, but languages are not my strong point. My strength lies elsewhere. So, in D&D terms, what am I learning instead of languages? And in D&D terms, how are all these languages being learned? Again, if there is no public school education, if there are no learned, not universities even, but basic schooling, if it doesn't exist in your world, then how are people learning how to read and write and do any kind of math beyond counting on fingers and toes? That takes an education system, and I haven't seen it in the fantasy worlds that I've experienced, and not even Forgotten Realms. And yet we're assuming that everybody's pretty much literate. Everybody has notes hidden underneath the bed, in the floorboard, right? You know, if you want to stump your players, you give them some dead language. They got to find some sage or cast a spell to interpret what that markings on that map mean. Hell, you could put it in plain old common, and 90% of the population probably wouldn't be able to read it if we were using an educational system that, you know, it's not there. So since we're not using it, people shouldn't be able to read. It's just, when you get away from the hustle and bustle of New York City, and I said, you know, yesterday I was hanging out with Joe the lawyer and my wife Rach, Lower Manhattan, and it was a good time, but the pushing and the shoving and the bobbing and the weaving to get through those crowds, I don't miss it. I don't enjoy it. I live in Queens, one of the outer boroughs. We don't have that issue, but when I get up here in the Poconos, you might hear cars going by in the background occasionally. You'll hear an 18-wheeler. Route 6 lies a couple of 100 yards from my house. And, well, not my house, my parents' house. But from where I'm at, and especially when they go in uphill on Route 6, you'll hear the engines kick in. But there's something about being away from the hustle and bustle. Let your mind think about things that might not. All right, so I moved my phone in some random direction, and it stopped recording. But I was able to save the clip. But yeah, getting away, stepping away from the intensity of city living and being a bit more rural in the modern day allows, in my case at least, the freedom from my mind to think about things that maybe a little bit deeper. When it comes to the gaming thoughts, anything but deeper in life. In any case, we've got another, I guess, day and a half up here. So you'll have at least one more episode from the Poke You in the Nose. I'm not used to recording from my phone. Yes, we recorded yesterday's pub chat with Joe and Rach using the phone, but I usually use a headset at my desktop. Even when I go to conventions, I'm usually using my laptop with a headset or just the built-in mic. But when I come up here, I want to sit on the back porch. I want to hear the noise of nature. I want to hear the leaves. I want to smell what I can without my allergies. But I just want to experience that, and hopefully some of it carries through the audio, and you can hear it in the background. It's going to start raining according to weather.com in about 3 minutes. I think tomorrow's going to have some rain, but I like rain up here. It's not bad. House has a metal roof. If you're up in the bedrooms, it used to be an attic when I was a young man. Oh shit, when I was a kid. It's calming. Really, it was overwhelmingly calming to hear that rain hit the metal roof. Like cats in a hot tin roof. Pitter patter, pitter patter. Yeah, okay, I'm getting a bit, a bit too deep. So, on that note, folks, I am going to bid thee and thou and all yous adieu. Stay safe, be well. As always, God bless. Roll those dice, and I will talk with you all tomorrow. Later, folks.